So, welcome to Sticks and Stones Farm, and we're here to talk with Bill Donaldson about his mission with Love Has a Home and what's going on here, what's currently going on, and to share a little bit how our missions are pretty similar. CONNECT-icut Healing Arts Practitioners is about supporting one another, getting to know each other, how I call it soul to soul. So, really forming relationships so that we can support one another in practicing from compassion and integrity. And it started when I was in Brazil with my mother, and we learned while we were there with the healer, John of God. It was entities from saints to doctors to different healing, compassionate spirits. It wasn't even just one entity, it was thousands that had to raise our vibration and our consciousness to perform the healing. So that is the healing arts practitioners. And then we were just talking about John of God and how he's not seen in the best light right now. And I feel like it has nothing to do with the healing that actually took place there. But so we're here to talk to Bill now to discuss. We're going to be holding the CONNECT-icut Healing Arts Practitioners here probably once a month. So this is introducing you to this space. And we're going to talk to Bill now about his mission with Love Has a Home. So if you want to share with us why you started that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing this video, and thank you for bringing more people to this space. Looking forward to that gathering that's happening soon. It's a long story of how I ended up here, but we'll start with Love as a Home. I've been doing spiritual work for a long time, which means I've just been asking a lot of questions, like, what the heck is this all about? And what's God? What's, all those questions just started coming more and more, starting in my,
What are we
I
here
guess,
for?
late 30s and, sort of that time, almost middle age. Now I'm finally at middle age, I think in my 50s. So, so it's been a long journey for probably 15 years or so. And in that space of learning and studying and understanding, the idea of like what you resist persists. Like, we shouldn't, and this is like law of attraction stuff too. That was one of my first entry points into spiritual work, was law of attraction work, because I was an entrepreneur. And it's like, whatever it takes to be successful. If I have to do law of attraction, fine, I'll do it. It wasn't really a spiritual thing. It was like another tool to make it work, But then you start like, well, what is this? And why does it work? And what's going on? And, it brought me, it was my entry point, and then it brought me into this rabbit hole, like, that you never leave, So my understanding was, if you think about what you don't want, it's just going to bring that thing into your life more, right? So this was back in October of 2017. I'm driving to my office down in Westport, where I had an office for my financial consulting practice. And I saw a sign, lawn sign, hate has no home here. And immediately I was like, that's not going to work. That's like totally going against these principles of law of attraction, spiritual principles of, if you want something, focus on what you want. Don't focus on what you don't want. But I believe that our primal instinct is to resist something we don't want. It's like how we survived.
I think it's how the brain is wired.
Yeah, the primal reptilian brain is fight or flight. Like, if something's coming at you don't want, you either fight it or you run from it, or you freeze and hope it goes by you and doesn't notice, whatever. So I think that's just the reaction. And that what was happening then is that Charlottesville, there's a hate crime back in Charlottesville. There was a white supremacy rally. Then there was an anti-rally against white supremacy. And then a white supremacist ran over one of those people in his car and killed this woman. And it was horrible. And the whole world turned into anti-hate. It's like, that's the wrong reaction. It should be pro-love, not anti-hate.
Right.
So I saw that sign, and all this is flooding into my head. Like, this isn't going to work. Like the war on drugs didn't work. The war on poverty didn't work. The war on
All
terror
those
doesn't
things like
work.
start piled in.
Yeah, and I used to be a DARE officer, drug abuse resistance education. I used to be a police officer,
Yeah.
like in another incarnation. Drug abuse resistance education. That program was doomed to fail from the beginning because it was resisting the very thing. I didn't know that back then. I didn't have any of this in my head.
Yeah.
The point is we don't resist something we don't want if we want something else. So I thought, why can't the sign say love has a home here, not hate has no home here? Like, that's what we want. So I literally drove my office, which was 10 minutes more down the road, and I just started searching. Is anyone doing it? Is anyone using it? Does it exist out there? Well, it didn't. I'm like, wow, really? It's not, no one's figured this out yet? So to me, it was almost like this whole thing was just floating up there in, this field of, of possibility, and no one had yet quite hit the vibration to match with it yet. And all of a sudden I just did in that moment, and it just came boom. And like loveasahome.org was available. Love as a Home here was not registered, trademarked, anything. I'm like, I just grabbed it and did it, and then I'm like, well, now what do I do with it? Like, is this a business? What is this? And I'm like, no, it's got to be a nonprofit. It can't be about making profit off, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I just
love.
thought, this has got to be a nonprofit. So I'm like, all right, I'll start a nonprofit. So I started a nonprofit. I'm like, oh, I need a board of directors. And so it just kept on building and building. And then it's like, okay, what do we do with this now? And we started out with lawn signs and t-shirts and hats. And, we're like, let's just get this message out to the world. Like, we need to shift people's thinking about focusing on what you want. Don't keep resisting what you don't want. That's just not going to work. Mother Teresa talked about that, and Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela and Gandhi. Be the change you want to see. Don't fight against what you don't. Be that. So like all these great teachers would just just kind of flooded in, and I'm like, this is the way we have to do this. So that was like Love as a Home 1.0. And there's a whole other story of how I landed here at Sticks and Stones Farm. But basically, my son started going to the wilderness school here, 2 Coyotes, when he was 5. That was 10 years ago. And so, I lived in Newtown around the corner, so we were just here all the time. I ended up on the board of 2 Coyotes Wilderness School. I was their treasurer as a financial person. And, the owner was kind of in transition back then. He's like, 2 Coyotes should buy it. And so we had this whole big project to purchase Sticks and Stones for 2 Coyotes, but that ended up not working. But I had Love as a Home. It was kind of idling at that point. Like I had a big initial charge and got the products and raised the money. But then like reality hit, and I'm like, I still have to make money in my business, and I don't know how to build a big retail company. And it was just a lot of energy. And so it sort of settled a little bit, back burner. It was still there, but it wasn't. This wasn't taking off the way I'd hoped it did. And so the Sticks and Stones 2 Coyotes partnership didn't work. But I've been working with the owner so much with that whole conversation and that whole negotiation that I said, well, why don't Love as a Home buy Sticks and Stones Farm? I was in it so deep already, and I was so passionate about preserving this incredible space. It's 60 acres, and it's incredible, because I was so passionate about 2 Coyotes and the work they did with children and the nature mentoring, and it's incredible. So I'm like, whatever it takes to preserve this space, I'm going to do it. So it became about Love as a Home buying Sticks and Stones, and then it was like, whoa, Love as a Home isn't just a tagline and a lawn sign. Like, it's a place. Like, we can actually create this space where people come and they feel love, they feel peace,
Accepted.
Yeah,
Whole.
everyone's welcome. We love everybody that comes into this property. Doesn't matter who you were when you drove in. Like, you're here now and you're accepted. And that's the feeling, the experience of Love has a Home here. Because what is that? Love has a home means everybody's loved. Like, it's not love as a home here, except for
Yeah.
there is no
Yeah.
exceptions. And we refer to that as unconditional love, but not everyone has the same definition of that. It's a tricky, love is a tricky word.
Yeah, the whole thing is a challenge, I think, for the human race
It
to be
is.
able to love every.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because most people think of like the emotion love. Well,
that too.
that's not an enduring thing. Like emotional love, it just is like on and off and on and off. And like, you pissed me off today, so I don't love you anymore. Like, that's
Yeah,
not it. That's just an emotion. But true unconditional love is a state of being, and the state of how you see the world and how you see people, and you see through that ego, like the John of God experience. Like the ego, the personality of John of God is not perfect.
yeah,
It's faulted, and he's got wounds. He probably was an abused child. I mean, who knows? I don't know the whole story, but clearly he had a lot of shadow and all the stuff that was from his experience on Earth, and um,
and at the same time, it shows how much healing can happen
yeah.
even with that.
So
So,
who is this the soul, this being, this spiritual being of John of God? Well, that's what you know that
yeah,
was the healing, and that so we can accept
yeah,
people for their
yeah,
personality flaws, because we're all just dealing with what we bring in and what we're conditioned as children. And everyone's got that. We're not perfect beings. If we were, we probably wouldn't be here anymore. We would be graduated off to something else. We're
yeah.
here in this school of Earth trying to figure it all out, and we're doing it together. And that's, I think, what you're bringing to it
The
is,
acceptance.
yeah,
So acceptance of the differences, but the same mission that we all care for people with the practitioners. Practitioners, everybody's doing work and healing people and taking care of
yeah.
people.
And at
So
the same time, we got to do our own work.
that
The
too.
practitioners aren't perfect, and
That
we have our stuff.
and so yeah, so that we
So
motivate each other to keep on a integrity
yeah,
in our integrity.
and don't
And
forget self-care.
right,
Some
that's
people
the
just give,
big
give, give,
keys.
give. They're beautiful people, but all of a sudden they run out of energy because they haven't been refilling the tank.
And
And I think that's what you're offering too, is like, let's be together and fill each other's tanks back up, because we can all benefit from that.
instead of also challenging and resisting each other is also what I see. I have a little story that um, I grew up in a beach club, and it was on one side of this big body of water, and on the other side was this ghetto where people were killing each other.
Oh my God.
We're literally killing and shootings happening all the time. Where we're at this beach club right across the water, where they're promoting each other and helping each other's businesses grow and things happen. And so that's what I see, like with the practitioners, like we help one another. It's like, do you see that? What I'm
Yeah,
like? We're not. Yeah,
yeah,
we're like we're. I say that the healing practitioners are not at the top of the economic scale, and doctors aren't even. When I
no,
worked in Greenwich with the wealthy, it was the stockholders, the people that worked on Wall Street,
yeah.
that were the most wealthy. Not even the doctors that I was working with. So um, I see, like, we have to come together. We can't be against each other and thinking that we do the best job. That's one of the things that happens.
Yeah, and then that separation comes, and all of a sudden, this is there's a great book by Ram Dass called "How Can We Help?" or "How Can I Help?" It's all about
Hmm.
service, and one of the biggest obstacles to truly serving someone is seeing you as a healer and them as a patient that needs you. There's a separation there,
Right.
and it's not true healing. It's not true service to that being. It's
Right.
We're two beings here that are just two beings, and right now you need some help on your journey, and I'm here to just walk with you.
This piece.
Yeah,
This one piece,
yeah,
not the whole thing.
yeah, because
Right.
he found himself, because he was a psychologist, a Harvard professor, and he was like, I'm a Harvard professor, and
Help you.
I'm gonna
And
fix you
fix.
because I know all this stuff, and you just need me to help you. And he got into that trap, and it's a big ego trap too. And fortunately, he caught himself and went on his, psychedelic journey, which led to a spiritual journey, which led to his whole life mission. And he devoted himself to service. And Ram Dass means service to God, I think. I'm pretty sure. I know Ram is God, and I think Das is service. So that was his big thing, and so that's I think something that we can bring to that group too, is to not get that stuck in that feeling you're separate from the people you're working with.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we're all really part of the same thing.
Yeah.
The one consciousness that we all share.
When I work with the dying and bringing them comfort, and I go in not as a therapist, I go in as an equal, and we're healing each other. There's no me healing them.
Yeah.
Would you like to share a little bit more about Sticks and Stones too?
Sure. Well, first thing I want to do is acknowledge, the ancestors who lived here, the Putatuk tribe that were on this land long before the colonists came and took it. So we're sitting on colonized land that once was native land. And the Putatuks have a reservation in Trumbull right nearby. It's on 1/4 of an acre. That's all that's left. A quarter of an acre. So that's first, and to acknowledge them for stewarding this space.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and it's incredible. The Paugussett, they're now the Paugussett, the Golden Hill Paugussett tribe. The Putatuks, because of disease and everything, the numbers started diminishing, and the Paugussett was a bigger, sort of umbrella tribe that they were absorbed into to survive. So a lot of these smaller tribes just don't exist anymore. There's lineage to them, but the actual existing tribe today is Paugussett. There also were Mohicans in here. There's Scotticooks here. There were a few other tribes that were Wappinger that were in this area. So then in 1976, a man named Tim Currier bought it, started with 19 acres and a little house. And he decided, he wanted to have forest land, but you can't do it with 19 acres. You need to have some minimum 20 something. So he's like, well, I got to get more land. So he started just going to neighboring pieces of land, and he was able to buy, chunks here and there. And now it's 60 acres. And he also, over time, he's a stonemason, so his business was stone building, and this place is loaded with stone, sticks and stones. That's a reason. But he started, this barn he built for equipment that we're sitting in. There's a big garage door right here, and there were trucks right where we're sitting right now in here. And, they'd come in here and work on equipment and things. But it became clear as he just started sort of creating this space and trails, and people would come. He's like, we need a community space. So they put a floor in and made it nice. And and then he started building little cabins up in the woods where people would come and work on the farm, and they'd give them a place to stay. It just very organically over time just morphed into this sort of retreat space. And various, his son ran it for a while, his daughter ran it for a while, some, other people would come in. It's been through lots of different sort of iterations of itself. Now with Love as a Home, we've been here for 3 years now. And we have an agreement with Tim to buy it. And our vision for it is, we're going to call it Moss Mountain. It's already called Moss Mountain. There's a plaque right up here that says Moss Mountain 30-year anniversary. So they have literally a moss mountain. It's a hill, but if you walk on the property along the river and you look up, especially where the labyrinth is, and you look up, you'll see just a green hillside. It's all moss.
It's beautiful.
And it was prepped, the leaves are blown off of it, the sticks are moved, the bushes are trimmed so the leaves can come blow through them. I mean, there's a lot of work to propagate this moss. And he would actually sell the moss, for years. They sold moss too. they'd grow it, but they'd also, you know, take pieces of the carpet moss and put them in trays, and then it would regrow. And so moss is like a big part of the history here. So I just thought, why not honor that legacy and bring Moss Mountain to the front? It's always been sort of, you know, in behind the scenes in the shadows.
Yeah.
It's Sticks and Stones Farm, but we have Moss Mountain, you know. So Moss Mountain just is a better, it just brings out that natural feeling that, you know, moss is so soft and grounding, and mountain is, you know, like this big expansive, you know, aspect of topography that we also have here a lot of hills and stuff. So this just feels better than sticks and stones. That's like
Yeah.
a, you know, break my bones. That's what everyone automatically thinks, right? So so that's the vision, is Moss Mountain. We see it as a center for connection. Whether we say center for connection, you know, we're still working out exactly the image. We're doing
Yeah.
branding and imaging and messaging, all that we're working on right now. But connection is really the main core, what we're going for. You know, we want people to find connection here, and there's so many ways to do it. You can, you know, kids are finding connection out in the woods with two coyotes, and someone that comes and just walks a trail can find connection to nature or
Yeah.
themselves, or, you know, just a way to just reconnect and meditate or whatever. On and on and on, there's ways you can come here to connect. And this feeling of disconnection, I think, is such a problem for the whole planet. You know, climate crisis, like, we don't feel connected to nature, so we have no problem just chopping it up and getting rid of it because it's some inanimate thing that doesn't matter. But nature is the foundation. You know, it's such a, you come here and there's no, I mean, it's so grounded in nature here. Even when you're inside the building, you can feel it.
Yeah.
And so that connection is really important. And you know, if we want to survive as a species, we've got to pay attention to the very thing that sustains us, which is the planet.
It's really a place to come to get connected to ourselves so that we can be more conscious in our actions
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah,
and what we commit ourselves
you
to.
leave here feeling more connected, and then when you go out, hopefully it stays, at least some of it stays with you. You know, it sticks a little bit, and then maybe every time you come back, you know, it just keeps building. And so we can create this ripple of connection that goes out wherever. It can go pretty far. People come here from pretty far away sometimes. That's really what it's about, is we're doing what we can to heal, you know, as far out as we can, this community, the region, you know, tri-state, wherever.
And centered in compassion and love
Mhm.
and unconditional love,
Yeah.
centered in that acceptance of all,
But you got to come,
to be able
come
to
here
feel
to
it.
really feel it. You can talk about it all day long, but you got to experience it. So it's open all the time. You can come and just walk. You know, it's like a public space. So you can come anytime here and just walk the trails, walk the labyrinth,